And Irma, could you tell us a little bit about when you have a new client, what kind of the onboarding process is? What does that look like when you're first meeting them and the steps you take?
Sure. So, if we talk about small business, for instance, sometimes, usually the leadership or someone from the CEO or someone from operations comes to me and with this request of, I want to have more diverse, board members, for instance, or I want to have more diverse network to reach more clients. And so, first of all, it's just to assess where they are, what they need, and what they want.
And that's done through exams or sit-down
It's
meetings?
a lot of data analysis. It's a lot of analyzing what they're doing and how they're working. If we talk about recruiting, if we go directly to their employees, I know that it doesn't apply when you have 3 employees, but if you have, more than 10 or 20, you start talking about, okay, where do we reach our future employees? And then it's just start thinking about it, or how do you promote people? And again, thinking about the employees. But then if you want to think about your board members, and if you want to say, have a very diversified group that will help you, then you need to start working on where to reach those people too, like where to find them and how to integrate them, and then how to make them work effectively. Because if they have with very different backgrounds, if you don't work with them in a cohesive way, it can backfire you.
Really?
Really.
So by adding more diversity, there's been instances that you've seen where it actually backfired and there's less communication,
Exactly.
less ideas being exchanged.
Exactly.
What happens in a situation like that then?
Well, you need to look for help. And here I am. Well, it's true. I mean, it's when you start thinking about diversity, you need to have cultural intelligence. That's what they call it. So it's how to communicate effectively, how to work effectively, regardless where you're coming from or what is your background or what do you like or not like. Just being more impartial and focus on the work, on the results, and that everybody wants the same thing, despite where you're coming from.
Is there a way for an individual to kind of train themselves to become more aware of the situation around them? Is that part of, I'm guessing that would be part of sales training as well, as marketing is kind of to read body language and know the scenario. How would you coach someone in that? Either, yeah.
I think that it starts for self-awareness. And then from there, everything is possible. But you need to be aware of where you are, who you are, and then what you want and how you present to everybody, to the rest of the world, right? And as a leader or someone that is leading a group, a company, you need to think even farther away. Not only about yourself and what you present and what you show to your company, but also what do you want from your employees and how do you lead them?
Interesting.
Yeah, and not everybody's comfortable doing that, right? So I mentioned earlier about the multicultural piece. When we were chatting about that, English is not necessarily the first language of a lot of people, right? I think some 45% of Silicon Valley founders are immigrants, right?
Really?
That's,
I
you
didn't
were
know.
mentioning
Wow.
some names, and it's a pretty high stat. But not everybody's comfortable in presenting. If you have to be here, you have to present to clients, you have to sell yourself, you have, right? You have to pitch to audiences and panels. How are you going to do that? So that's part of the work that I do, and she does other aspects of that with helping folks whose English is not their first language.
And vice versa. I mean, when Americans go to other places, other countries too, they need to be aware of the other culture. They need to be aware how, like the essential part of the other culture, like what is expected, what is must know, how you treat people and work, so you can work effectively.
That's one thing myself I've had a lot of experience with, meeting Americans here and taking them to China, and where in America they go, I had a Japanese friend growing up or something, so I understand all of Asia. You're like, oh God, no.
Exactly.
Don't sit too close to me during any meetings. But
Well, you raise a good point, because even just the word Asian American, that really doesn't exist because I'm part Filipino, but when you talk about Asian American, there's like 20 different groups that comprise Asian American.
Oh, and by the way, I'm half Japanese.
And you're half Japanese, so there you go, right? So, yeah, I mean, there was a survey done of like 190 countries, and only 10% of them were indigenous. So what does that mean? That means 90% of the world is multicultural.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you guys decide to take this path for your careers? What led you in this direction to be this coach, be this advisor?
Well,
you got too excited.
Well, I mean, what he was saying just made me think about it, and it's through all my previous experience. Basically, I'm also multicultural, half Japanese, half Mexican, and I have been working in Europe and in the U.S. and Mexico.
Oh,
so, you know, working with many cultures, it stays something with you, and I have been a minority in many places. You know, minority of gender, minority of race. Either when I was living in Mexico, I was a minority, because I was half Japanese, and then minority of my educational background because I'm an engineer. So it's, you know, a minority.
Hey, go engineers! Mechanical.
So when you know, throughout my experiences, I noticed that I didn't have the same opportunities. I noticed as everybody else, or the same voice, or the same recognition as everybody else. It's not that I wanted, you know, a special thing. It's just like, let's be, you know, impartial and be equal, fair for everybody. So it led me to start noticing these patterns, and eventually, you know, there is a whole bunch of people studying and working on this, luckily, on diversity and inclusion. And it got me very excited because it got me to my core and how I can help, because I have been there. So leaders and organizations need these tools, and because everybody has the same intention, right? The good intention, but sometimes we're not aware. So I want to be the tool, that enabler for making people succeed.
Ceser, did you have a similar experience?
Yeah, so, you know, similarly, I like to be the catalyst for somebody else in terms of helping them to raise their awareness, because that's, you mentioned that earlier, that's really where it starts, right? So there's some tools out there like the Johari window that we look at.
What's the Johari window?
It's basically from two scientists that they share the name Joe and Harry, and they put their name together. It's a Johari window, and it basically helps you identify, you know, your blind spots. And
really?
Then again, it's kind of tough to identify a blind spot if you're not aware of it. So it's all about raising awareness from there, and then really just, you know, working with folks to see, you know, what's going on with them. You know, where are their, you know, limitations in terms of the cultural intelligence. You know, they call that the CQ, the cultural intelligence. How can you raise that with your communication when you're communicating with employees or with customers? You really have to factor in a lot. There's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration, and beware of your assumptions. Because you know what happens when you assume.
Makes sense.
Exactly. So we have to be careful.
No editing on that one.
So and I've been guilty of that myself, right? And so, you know, going into another country, and even though I have experience from different countries, and I've worked in different countries, and I've done training and coaching around different parts of the world, I'll still make mistakes because I assumed that, it's just like back in San Fran, and people do it this way.
Okay.
For some little things, even as like the respect for timing. Each country views, you know, different people, different cultures view different things with respect to time, with respect to relationships.
What percentage, or I'm just throwing this out there, of deals or opportunities do you think businesses miss because they don't understand the culture that they're trying to work with?
It's a super question. It's a super question.
I don't think that there is a right answer there, but there is a lot of missed opportunities, and you see it every day. You know, even in not even saying in organizations, and you know, in your daily interactions, because you assume one thing, and it's really not. You maybe miss a good friend,
Yeah.
or maybe miss a good a food or movie or something. So it applies to everything.
Yeah.
So,
And the
if-
mode of communication, sorry, also it's the mode of communication as well. So, right, when you're talking with somebody in person, by phone, by email, it's the email that gets you in trouble, especially because of that lack of the body language and the things as far as the communication goes, right? So, if you're a leader of a startup, if you're working on that, it's another thing you have to think about.
Interesting.
So I want to highlight what you said about the spot, the blind spot.
Say it
Yes.
real quick, and then we got to
Sure.
start wrapping up, but go on.
Well, the blind spot, and also how your brain works with quick responses, like with your first, intention and response, and then, like once you digest, you can really understand and then come up with better solutions. So it's better to take a few minutes before responding sometimes.
Great. Ceser, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, Resonate is the business, and so the website is resonatenow.org.
Interesting. And Irma?
It's theseabridge.com. It's my business,
Okay.
and you can learn more about what we do and how we could help.
Okay, so visit the website,
Visit
the
the
Z
website,
Bridge,
The Sea Bridge.
to
or-
contact.
Exactly. Or my email, irma@theseabridge.com.
That's great. And I want to thank everyone for tuning into this week's episode of Silicon Valley Successes. Our guest next week, you'll be very impressed. There'll be a surprise for you. But with that being said, Ceser, Irma, what is one thing you'd like to give advice or wish someone had given you, told you a year ago or 2 years ago or when you started?
Wow. Focus.
Irma?
Believe in you and be perseverant.
Great. That's great advice. Thank you guys for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I look forward, and for everyone at home, stay tuned for the after show as well. You catch that on our YouTube channel.
Thank you from all of us at Silicon Valley Successes. We hope you found the information presented today useful in your path to success. For further information on accessing the resources in Silicon Valley, you may visit us on the web at siliconvalleysuccesses.com, on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you. And remember, we want to help you in your journey to become the next success.